to YouTube, connected, not connected to TELUS. We are live. 3, 2, 1.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Muneer Nazir, and a lot of people, they know me for being behind the camera. But inshallah today I'll be in front of the camera and I'll be speaking to you on behalf of the Canadian Muslim Vote in partnership with the Al Rashid Mosque and NCCM. So you might be asking, who is the Canadian Muslim Vote? So the Canadian Muslim Vote is a non-profit, non-partisan and grassroots organization that aims to increase civic engagement of Canadian Muslims through outreach and education. This means we work all over Canada with multiple Islamic organizations to try and help the increase in turnout of Muslims voting. So as you listen, you'll see why this is important and why it's important in this election specifically for Muslims to go out and vote. The Canadian Muslim Vote, or TCMV, is non-partisan, meaning we don't tell you who to vote for. We'll never encourage you to vote for a specific party. Our goal is simply to push that Muslims go out and vote so that they're best represented and most fairly represented in government. The TCMV works all over Canada to try and encourage voting. And because of our extensive network all over Canada, we're able to gain statistics to show the effectiveness of Muslim voting. So as I mentioned, the TCMV's main objective is to try and get Muslims to have as many registered voters as possible and actually vote to gain the statistics potentially Muslims who vote. So while voting, the TCMV is able to gain statistics of Muslims who vote. And these statistics are not only important for TCMV's database, but they're also important for the government because they show that Muslims come out to vote. To be frank, politicians care about voting. And when Muslims go out to vote and they demonstrate and they show that they're the ones who have a population who go out to vote, politicians are more likely to cater their agenda towards us, compared to that if they see Muslim only 10% or 20% of the population is voting, we are less likely to be included in the agenda. So by voting, by going out, by showing that your vote matters and that Muslims are going out to vote, we have a higher chance of being represented and more represented in our Canadian government. Recently, the highest voting that Muslims have ever had was 80%, and that was in the 2015 election. And during that election, we had a shift in government from one party to the next. However, there are some challenges. We want to get back to this 80% and hopefully maybe even reach 90% for this election. Recently, in the past elections, only 30 to 40% of Muslims who could vote did. And after the 2015 election, only 16% or 60% to 70% of Muslims came out to vote, which was a tremendous decrease compared to the previous election. A 10% decrease may not sound like a lot, but this is around 81,000 Muslims who could have voted but didn't. 81,000 Muslims can change the outcome of many who were elected. The 2021 federal election represents a historic crossover for Canadian Muslims and Canadian society at large. As once per century type of event, the pandemic has already and will continue to significantly shape the policies of today and tomorrow. Healthcare, the economy, privacy rights, the environment, housing, and immigration are just a few of these issues at stake. Whoever Canadians choose to lead the country on September 20 will be responsible for managing Canada's response to the pandemic, as well as the post-pandemic roadmap. So it is pivotal that Canadian Muslims have their say in this election process because it affects us tremendously. This is a huge opportunity. Canadian Muslims, as I keep stressing, wield a great deal of power. We calculate there to be over 800,000 eligible Muslims to vote this election. Our projections have shown that in 2021 federal election, the amount of potential Muslim voters will outnumber the predicted margin of victory in approximately 107 ridings. That means that 1/3 of all ridings in Canada. So basically, in 107 ridings all over the country, if all the Muslims came out to vote, we could potentially change the whole government and potentially change who is represented in each of those ridings. Some of those ridings being in Alberta, 107 of those ridings across Canada, if every single Muslim came out to vote, can completely change the election. Canadian Muslims are in a unique position to decide who will govern and whether they form a majority or a minority government. Politicians of all stripes and levels of government have taken notice of this trend. So if they see Muslims going out to vote and making a huge impact on who is elected, they will further adhere to your community needs. You will see more politicians coming to your mosques, coming to your community centers, coming to MSAs, and listening to our needs, because we're the ones who are voting. We're the ones who are making an impact in this election. That's why it's pivotal that everyone in this election, Muslims specifically, go out and vote. Not only that, but Islamophobia has also been a huge problem recently all across Canada. You know, on the heels of heinous incidents like the Quebec City mosque shooting or the June's London terror attack, multiple attacks that happened here and in our own community against Black Muslim women. Islamophobia is more a part of a national discourse than ever. Last April, an important report titled Layer Suspicion, released in collaboration with the University of Toronto Institution of Islamic Studies and the National Council of Canadian Muslims, or NCCM, made headlines across the country for its critical analysis of Islamophobia in the audit process of the Canadian Revenue Agency. Shortly after, in July, political leaders across the country from all parties and level of government attended the first ever national summit on Islamophobia, where they denounced Islamophobia and pledged to take various degrees of action to combat Islamophobia, including reforming the CRA's charity audit process and providing funding for Muslim community projects. Although these are positive first steps, Canadian Muslims must make their voice heard in this election to ensure combating Islamophobia remains at the front lines, that it is always a priority for the politicians. You know, by taking these steps and voting and showing that Muslim voters count, we as a community are fighting Islamophobia. You are taking a position against Islamophobia and representing and trying to make it safer for our Canadian brothers and sisters in Islam. So, based on current polls and based on statistics, the conservative government are expected to double their seats. The Liberals are expected to lose about 9 of their seats. The NDP to gain around 4 seats. We expect Independents not to win any. We expect the Bloc to lose 2, and the Green to lose their only seat. This creating a minority government. But again, none of these numbers are set in stone. These are only statistics and have the potential to change. And they have the potential to change if Muslim voters go out and vote. So if you don't like these numbers, if these numbers you feel are not representative of you and your idea and your virtues and your values of Muslims, then if you go out to vote, you're demonstrating that you want to be more fairly represented. So the TCMV has put together the Muslim Vote Weekend. The Muslim Vote Weekend is a campaign which takes place from September 10th to the 13th, which are the dates of early advance voting. During these days, we highly encourage all Muslims to take some time and vote. Muslim Vote Weekend is one of the important ways the Canadian Muslim vote is knocking down barriers to voting among all Canadian Muslims. So during the advance poll weekends of any given election, TCMV staff and volunteers are busy across Canada getting Canadian Muslims out early to the polls, ensuring that they are properly registered and make sure they know exactly how to vote. So in your local mosque in Edmonton, maybe you'll see volunteers handing out flyers with banners. You'll see posters encouraging us as Muslims to vote because of how important it is. In the past, Muslim Vote Weekend, TCMV has distributed over 20,000 pieces of Get Out and Vote literature in dozens of key ridings across Canada, arranging for over 100 mosques across Canada to deliver Get Out and Vote speeches, supplied with hundreds of campaign-in-a-box kits to Canadian mosques. They canvassed over 7,000 households, made over 80,000 voters outreach callers. So they were trying so heavily to connect with Muslim voters to ensure that they had the proper tools and the proper training and they had the right ideas to go out and vote. So once again, the Canadian Muslim Vote Weekend for the 2021 federal election will take place during the weekend of Friday, September 10th, 2021 to Monday, September 13th, 2021. However, if you cannot vote this weekend and you cannot vote in the advanced polling, September 20th, you still have a chance to vote. So we really encourage everyone to go out and vote. And I know I've talked a lot about the importance of voting and really stressing the point of why it's important for Muslims to vote. But you may be asking, how can we vote? What's the processes? We don't have the tools. A lot of people may be uneducated of, who can vote? Where can I vote? So in Canada, you must be a Canadian citizen and at least 18 years old on election day and prove your identity and address and able to vote. In this election, because of the pandemic, there are a few ways to vote. You could vote at your assigned polling station on election day, like usual. You could vote at the assigned polling stations from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. during Muslim Vote Weekend or the advanced polling. Another way specifically catered because of the pandemic is voting by mail. But to vote by mail, you must register at any Election Canada office across Canada. But deadlines apply. So if you do wish to vote by mail, you must apply before September 14th at 6 p.m. and you'll be using a special ballot. By using a special ballot, it is not the same ballot as going to vote on your election day and checking off a box. So we really encourage you to go on TCMV's website, to go on the Canadian Muslim Vote website, to ask representatives like myself or representatives of NCCM to go and learn how to use these special ballots if that's something that you wish to do. There are over 500 Election Canada offices open across Canada, and vote at any one of them before Tuesday, September 14th, by Tuesday, September 20th. So the TCMV and NCCM are working collaboratively across Canada to try and push for Muslims to increase voting turnout, as I mentioned this weekend. But if you cannot do this weekend, we encourage on September 20th. So we all encourage all eligible voters to take their time and to go out and vote. And maybe if you can't vote, say if you're not eligible to vote, maybe you don't have your citizenship, maybe you're not old enough, you can still make an impact this election. You can do that by volunteering with organizations like TCMV, like NCCM, or maybe you have a campaign that you're so attached to that if you could vote, you would vote for them, but you can't. So go and volunteer for them, help them canvass, help them spread flyers. In any way you can, make calls to voters, people who can vote, demonstrating why this is important in our community specifically. So once again, on September 20th, make sure you go out and vote. And then if you have any questions, the Canadian Muslim Vote website is a great place to go and get your questions answered. Or you could even contact me or an NCCM representative. So we really encourage that everyone this election go out to vote and learn about the election, learn about parties you're voting for. Today at 7 p.m. we have the debate going. The debate is going on in English. So go out, watch the debate, see people's platform, see who you wish to be represented. Because again, when Muslims are going to be represented, when Muslims show that they have the population to change the election, when they have the voting population to make an impact, that is when politicians will start to hear us. That's when we'll start to get more representation. So I ask you, I know I keep stressing this point once again, on September 20th, to please go out and vote. And if you have any questions, contact myself, an NCCM representative, or go on, check out the social media. Thank you, and assalamu alaikum. Also, there's a link in the description for the Canadian Muslim Vote, as well as the social media, to learn more about the platforms. Thank you. Assalamu